Hello everyone. This week we'll be talking about parallel and perpendicular lines. Now we're going to be looking at uh, writing the equation of the lines that are either parallel to a particular line or perpendicular to a line. We're only going to be using the slope-intercept form to actually write them. We will use the point-slope form to assist us in writing it in slope-intercept form. But this, all your answer choices will look like y is equal to mx plus b. And when it's in slope intercept form, the slope is going to always be the number or constant value that's going to be in front of the x. And I just wrote that over to the side. So this is probably a good place where you can just stop the video and take some notes. Uh, and so what do we know about two lines that are parallel or multiple lines that are parallel? So if the lines are parallel, they're going to have the same slope. So this is just an example of two lines. If you were to graph them, they would be parallel because they both have a slope of 3. And so these two lines would be parallel. And then this is just the definition for perpendicular lines. Perpendicular line slopes are going to be opposite reciprocal. So in this particular case, I just gave an example just with the slope. If the slope is going to be 5, and then I can rewrite 5 as 5 over 1, then the opposite reciprocal of the slope of 5 will be negative 5 over 1. And the reciprocal just means you're just going to switch the numerator and the denominator. So 1 was in the denominator, so 1 now goes to the numerator. 5 was in the numerator, so now 5 is in the denominator. It was a positive slope, but the opposite of a positive is going to be negative. All right, so let's go ahead and look at our first example here. So our first example says, what is the equation of the line parallel to y is equal to x plus 3 and passes through the origin? So again, as I told you, in order to write the equation of the line, we're going to use the point-slope form. So the point-slope form is just going to be y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. And so your y and your x is going to always be in the equation. The only thing you're going to be substituting a number in for is for your y1, your m, and your x1. So in this particular case, your x1, y1 is always going to be the point that you're passing through. So since we're passing through the origin, the point that we're going to be passing through is 0, 0. So the origin is going to be 0, 0, 0. And so your x1 is always, again, as I stated, the point you're passing through. So since x1 and y1 is always the point that you're passing through. And so since I'm passing through the origin, my x1 is going to be 0 and my y1 is going to be 0. And remember, your slope is going to be the number in front of x, and since we don't see a number in front of x, it's understood to be 1. So I know the slope of this line is going to be 1. And then what do we know about parallel lines? Well, if the lines are parallel, then they're going to have the same slope. So that's why we have our slope is going to be equal to 1. And keep in mind, this is the slope of the new line. And the only reason the slope of the new line is still 1 is because the two lines are parallel. That's not going to work when they're perpendicular. So when you use the point slope form, you're putting in the information to get the new line, not the line that you already have. So in this particular case, let's go ahead and plug everything in. We know that y1 is 0. So remember, I told you don't change your y and your x. You only change your y1 and your x1 and your m. So everywhere I see a y1, I'm going to put a 0. Everywhere I see a x1, I'm going to put a 0. Everywhere I see a m, I'm going to put a 1. And so y minus 0 is just y, x minus 0 is just x. So that gives me y is equal to 1x, but 1 times x is just x. So the line that is parallel to y is equal to x plus 3 and passes through the origin is going to be y is equal to x. All right, guys, so we have one more example, and then we'll be done. So let's look at that example. This example is asking us what is the equation of the line perpendicular to y is equal to 5x, and it passes through the point 10, comma 1. So it passed through the point 10, 1. Now, with perpendicular line, whatever you see here that this has a positive slope. So if the line is perpendicular to y is equal to 5x, you know your answer choice is going to have a negative slope. So because you have to have the opposite reciprocal. So you at least know that any answer choice that has a positive slope for this perpendicular line is not going to be a correct answer choice. And it will be vice versa if you had a negative slope and you were looking for the line perpendicular to it. You know that any answer choices that has a negative slope would not be correct, because if the slope is negative, then the line perpendicular to it is going to have to be positive. It's going to have a positive slope. So in this particular case, we first need to find the slope of the line that's given. And so that's going to be the number in front of x, since it's already in slope-intercept form. So we know that that's going to be 5. So we can write that as 5 over 1. That's what this, I'm just going to put MO for the old slope, or the original slope for the line that's given, and then we need to take the opposite reciprocal of that. So that means if I have 5 over 1, the reciprocal is going to be 1 over 5. Since it's positive, I'm going to make it negative. And remember, I told you your x1 and y1 is going to be the point that it passes through. So your x come first, so your x1 is 10, and your y1 is going to be 1. And so we're going to use the point slope form. And so I got y minus 1 is equal to negative 1 over 5 times x minus 10. And so now I just need to distribute my negative 1 over 5 to everything inside of the parentheses. And so when I do that, I am going to get negative 1 over 5 times x, and then when I multiply negative 1 over 5 times a negative 10, and I did that little work over here to the side where a negative times a negative is going to be a positive, and when you multiply, you can go ahead and multiply straight across. I can go ahead and put negative 10 over 1, and so let's just multiply this straight across. A negative times a negative is a positive. So a negative 1 times a negative 10 is a positive 10. And then 5 times 1 is just going to be 5. And 10 divided by 5 is 2. So as you can see here, that's why I got this negative 1 over 5x plus 2 here. But you see here, we want to get y by itself. So this is a minus 1. So I'm going to have to add 1 to both sides. And so when I add 1 to both sides, where 2 plus 1 is going to be 3, I'm not going to add 1 to the x where we have a negative 1/5 x, because that will be trying to combine unlike terms. So I'm going to add the number with the number. And so that gives me the equation of the line is going to be y is equal to negative 1 over 5x plus 3. So this is the line that is perpendicular to y is equal to 5x and passes through the line 10, 1. So hopefully this video is going to help you be successful on the little short quiz. The quiz has about 4 questions, 2 over parallel line and 2 questions over perpendicular lines. So if you do need some further assistance, please send me an email and I will be happy to assist you with those particular problems. Thank you guys for watching the video. Continue to have a great week and hopefully all is well.